Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your president and CEO, Jay Coughlin.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Welcome. The journey continues at Lawson. Appropriate setting, hangars, planes, certainly ups and downs associated with this journey. But there's something you need to know about me, a story that I haven't told yet. And it takes me back to when I was in college. And yeah, no, it won't be all the college stories, but it will be one that as I was working in the summers and through most of the beginning part of college, I just had this goal, I had this dream of going west, of going out to California. And I was working in a steel plant. And it was a tough place, it was a rough job. But every single day, I would drive up to the steel plant with a guy named Bobby. And Bobby was one of these long-hair, free-spirit type of guys that really had a better attitude on life than I did. And every day driving up, I would say, you know, I really want to go to California. I really want to west. And I was just this urban kid out of Philly. And so he would say, go. Just go, you know. Don't worry about school. You know, don't worry about work. Just go. You know, it was such a great attitude. So I said, I'm going to go. I'm going to quit school. I'm just going to hitchhike around the country for 4 months. I went home and told my dad. He wasn't as much of a free spirit. He was a little bit upset. You know, and being a dad today, I can understand why. You know, I just came into him and said, you know, Dad, I'm not going back to school. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go hitchhike across the country. And he said, what? No, you're not. I said, yes, I am. He said, no, you're not. And I tell you, it was the first time in a long time that my dad's threat of actually taking a 2x4 to my head was a concern for me. And it was the first time I realized he actually wasn't going to do it when I went. And I took off. And I hitchhiked around the country for 4 or 5 months. And it was a wonderful experience. And my goal, remember, was to get to California. My goal was just to get out west. And I immediately found myself in camping situations. And I never had camped. I had never been, never went, never had the experience. So I remember being in a campground, and there was this wood sign. And on the wood sign it said, do not cut down the trees for firewood. And my initial reaction was, cut down the trees with what? So the obvious thing was I broke the sign up and used it for my firewood. It lasted maybe 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Roaring fire for 10 minutes went out. Many, many experiences. Like ended up in Yosemite National Park, a beautiful park if you've ever been out there. Looked at a sign that said, you know, 3,300 feet to 6,600 feet, strenuous. Figure I can do it. Not only can I do it, I can do it carrying 2 cases of beer on my back. It was like walking up steps, steep steps, for about 6 hours. Almost killed me. Almost killed me. Got to the top, one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever saw to this day. Ended up in the Grand Canyon. It was December, it was cold. I had a tent at that point, finally, that wouldn't have kept you warm in this temperature. It got to about 20-some degrees. I almost froze to death in the Grand Canyon. And it was still one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Hitchhiked all over the place. One point was in Phoenix trying to get to LA. Hitchhiking, a guy picked me up, ex-military guy. Got in this car. When it stopped, it was just shaking. It was a tin. It was just made of tin. I don't know what it was made of, but it was just all tires, all engine. All tires, all engine. We went from Phoenix to LA, and I don't know what the record time is, but he beat it by 10 minutes. He literally had his foot on the dashboard and his other foot on the accelerator the entire trip. Now, that wouldn't be too bad, except for one thing. We went through San Bernardino, and it was on fire. It was one of those fires they were having in California. And all Route 10 was just one big thing of smoke. And the most daredevil person was pulling over to the side of the road. He never took his foot off the accelerator. Boom! My fingernails are in the dashboard like this as I'm going through this smoke. Couldn't see a thing. Cruise through. Great guy. Learned a lot from him. Made it back. Made it back. It was an unbelievable experience. The beauty of this country, I think, is second to none. I grew up. I grew up. By the time I get back, I was a different person. My dad and I reconciled. He accepted me as the man I had become. Had a great relationship with him for the rest of his life. But I learned two things that were very important to me to this day. First thing, I met all sorts of people. All different demographics, rich, poor, every race, creed, and color you can imagine. When you're on the road like that, you meet a diversity of people. And what I found out is that I judge people individually because it's all about your character. And your character leads to your integrity. And to this day, I judge people individually, no matter what walk of life you come from. And the other thing I learned is it was about the journey. My goal was to get to California. My goal was to go west. But it was the journey that was the experience. The fun that I had, and I had a ton of fun. The heartbreak that I had. The stories that I just gave you, and I have thousands of them. The experiences that I learned that made me a big part of who I am today was all about the journey. It wasn't about the goal. It wasn't about making California. I made it. It was about the journey. And the journey at Lawson continues. The journey here at Lawson is continuing for all of us as we continue to mature as a company. Frank, do I have a slide up? These are the 4 questions that I've been asking all of you to understand for over 2 years. And with all the change we have going on, with all the things that are happening in the economy, I got to constantly bring it back to the basics. I constantly bring myself back to the basics. And the 4 questions are, where are we going? How are we going to get there? How do I contribute? And what's in it for me? With the first 2 questions being the top part of the pyramid. If you get to the vision, you want to know how we're going and where we're going, you're into the strategy, and at the top part of the pyramid, you're into our goals. Before I jump into this, I do want to get into why we're celebrating. Why are we here today? You know, I'm very forward thinking, but I got to constantly remind myself, you know what? We have accomplished great things. We have accomplished great things in the last quarter. We bought a company. Richard Daley and all the people in Tampa, Florida, I don't know if we've actually formally and officially welcomed them into this family. There's a company that's making huge impact on us already today. Bought it in April. We've actually did great things with Kids Peace. Actually, I mean, this is a perfect example of the challenges we were facing as an organization, how we learn and how we grow. Our customers were screaming at us about having to take their systems down while they upgraded. You went out, Joan Johnson Stoltman, your team, the service group, everybody else went out and figured this out and made this happen, made this change happen. Allowed them to actually take that and allowed to have it upgrade while active on an ongoing basis. Cisco. Cisco was an actual implementation that we won against one of our competitors called Niku. That was when Account 4. What we've done since is brought them on board. You've got them integrated. We've got Cisco Live, not here, Cisco Live in 24 different countries. 24 different countries. So with all the craziness that's going on, success is there. The success we've had with SA, the results, the amount of deals we've won, the amount of momentum as we strive, and you see, to become the leader in the SA world. Product announcements coming out quarter in and quarter out. All of us involved in getting new product out. You're going to have Brad Benson, Senior VP of R&D, coming up and speak with you this morning and give you an idea of his perspective on how he sees the things at Lawson. And we had Q over the last quarter. We had Q, where we took 4,000 plus of our customers and not only entertained them, but educated them. And every single one of you was involved in that, whether you were in San Antonio or not. Because if you weren't in San Antonio, you were doing all the extra work back here. And no matter what's happening to this organization, you stay true to who you are. And you're going to see it in our values, and you see it in our commitment to the community. Winston and her team and what they've accomplished with Lawson Lens of Hands, you all should be proud of. Because guess what? That pain in the community doesn't stop just because of the economy. That pain in the community is still there no matter the economy's doing great or the economy's not. We're committed to it. We're committed to making a difference. And we still did it with Lawson Lenz-Hanit. You did it. Congratulations. And that was for the quarter. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but this is the annual meeting. This is the annual meeting where I go back and say, what else did we do on the year? And there is so much new stuff that went on, I don't have the time this morning to go into it. But we bought other companies, new products, new customers, big customers, new brands, new live accounts. A lot of new going on, new processes, a lot of rewards for all this work. Global Support Center awards, new ad awards, record revenue. A year, a tough year with so many things that happened that we've talked about every quarter. Great results. Great results. You're going to have Bob Barbieri coming up and give you an idea of it. But congratulations. This is something where you got to occasionally step back and as we go look forward to the new 4 questions, say, hey, you know what? You did great. Thank you. You did great. This is the example of the awards and the things that you have accomplished over the last year. And I would say the toughest environment ever to face high tech. Congratulations. Great job. Great job. Do you remember this goal? Remember this goal? This was one of the biggies. You know, to go public, especially after so many years of talking about it. People ask me to this day, especially in the last 2 months, and they do it in a very sarcastic way. They'll say, how do you like being CEO of a publicly traded company now? You know, and you know, implied in that is your stock's down. Implied in that is you got CEOs that are you know, are being, you know, arrested and like a disaster. All right? And my answer to them is always consistent. My answer is especially when they ask, would you do it again? And it's yes. Yes. I'm proud to lead this company. I'm proud of all the things that you're accomplishing. That's what Lawson is all about. The fact that we're public just forces us into the disciplines that we need for perpetuity anyway. And I will say, it's a lot better standing here in front of you with over $200 million in the bank than it would be to have to go to U.S. Bank and borrow money. And can you imagine if we still had this goal when I was putting it in front of you now? If this was another year and I was talking about going public, guess what? You don't get out with the NASDAQ at 1,400. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. We went out at 2,100. NASDAQ, last time I looked, is 1,400, going the wrong way. Can't do it. Can't do it. We have the foundation as a publicly traded company for perpetuity that we would have been at risk if we weren't. And so when people ask that question, knowing what I have here and knowing what we have as a foundation, I answer it all the time the same exact way, and that's 100% yes. It's a lot better to be CEO of this publicly traded company than it is anywhere else, or to be private. Now back to the questions. As again, if we get into where we're going, how we're getting there, how we're getting there is the 4th piece of the strategy. Where we're going is the goals that are up top. And as we get into this first one, this goal, if you went back, was what we called a BHAG, which is a big, hairy, audacious goal. Right? There's other words for it too. That's where we go with it. And that means that it's something you strive for that a lot of times looks unrealistic. And there was a lot of times that this goal looked unrealistic. There was a whole span of time before a lot of us were here that people were talking about this. And it wasn't until the last 2 years probably prior to doing it that we got so focused on all the extra work that it really took to make it happen. So this was a big, hairy, audacious goal for a long time. We did it. Now we have to continue to strive to continue to be a well-run public company. But what is the new goal of where we're going from a point of view of a big, hairy, audacious goal? To be one of the top 5 software companies in the world. Not by Q2, maybe Q3. It's very aggressive. It's very assertive. There is no real time frame associated with it. But it is important because it drives a lot of the things that we do. This is where we're going. I would argue, if I had enough time with you, that it's also all about perpetuity. With the consolidation that's going on in high tech and will continue over the next few years, if you're not in this range, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble as a company. But the reason this is important, besides the fact that this is where we're going, is that a Lawson employee that's leaving? Besides the fact that this is important, is remember where you're going drives everything that we're about. It drives our thoughts. Our thoughts drive our emotions drive our attitudes, and all three of those things lead to action. That's why this is so important. So as we do things, the core of what we're striving to, where we're going at the top of the pyramid, is we want to be one of the top 5 software companies in the world. It's driving our behaviors as we go forward from this point forward. So I wanted to make sure that I shared that with you. It just didn't remain in the executive ranks. Back to strategy, how we're going to do this, how we're going to get there. I spent last time we were together, I spent a lot of time on the purpose and the mission. The purpose being using our technology to allow you to pursue your passion. Our mission, where we provide superior software to the service industry that radically allows you to change and where you operate and compete. Today is about strategy. And strategy, as I move up, continues with the competitive differentiation that all of us have. Providing business process software and services, total solutions with in-depth vertical functionality that helps customers achieve workforce optimization. Deep vertical functionality, software and services, solutions, not just software. This is the how part, how we're going to do it, how we're going to get there. You got to know this. You got to know it. Now, this has all been rolled out. Now, one last point before I get off this. Structure comes from strategy. Structure comes from strategy. And we've changed structure around here. Matter of fact, we've changed it a lot. And we're going to change it again. You got to remain flexible. I know when we change things, it has a dramatic impact on all of us. I don't downplay that at all. It impacts all of you. It impacts all of us. But you got to understand, we change it because it follows this. It follows the strategy. And if we announce something in a structure and it shocks you, I got to say, you got to look at your shock meter. You got to look at your shock meter. Because we're going to have to have the flexibility as we strive towards this to have the ability to change. Now, in that is just as much as opportunity, but we got to have it. Last piece is the workforce optimization piece on this brings together the fact that this is all about the service sector. If you go further, you went down further into mission, it was about the service sector. The additional piece, besides deeper vertical functionality, is workforce optimization, and hopefully you know what that message is. But that's where the link is between the different vertical operations. Now, this is a little bit of a trick question, because I congratulate you all. You've been rolling this out, and thank you very much over the last month. But just a trick question. Let me see a show of hands, anybody that hasn't seen these 4 slides. Good answer. Very small amount. Those 4 people, can you come up here? I want to know who your managers are. I don't know if it was just your fear that I'd actually bring you up here or you actually have been presented to. But I think what I heard is that most of this message has been given. And that most of the VPs, directors, and managers have given us in the rank and file. If you haven't seen it, hurry up and see it. The key for me now is not that you've seen it. The key is not that it's actually been presented to you. The key is that you understand it, that it becomes part of you, that you internalize it. This is a hard message. This is not, let me read the slides. You know, this is all about if you go into the vertical markets, these are the markets that we're going after. There are the markets that we're going to be in. And specifically, what does each market mean? If you go up and say the vertical market, the penetration with all the CASM methodology, that's how we go to market. That's how we as an organization, no matter what part of you in the organization you are, you should fully understand how we go to market. Why? Because you need to know the bigger picture of not only where we're going, but how we're going to do it. The workforce optimization part is just what are we doing to tie in the workforce optimization? What does it mean to an individual that we sell to, that we implement? What does it mean to the company? What does it mean to the team of people that work together? And what products, back into the components, what products are we building? How does that relate to the roadmap? Again, this is now way beyond the depth of the vertical, of the vision, of the pyramid. And this needs to be internalized by all of you, not just presented. And my challenge to you is that I need your help, that you not only get this presentation, but you thoroughly understand this as we go forward. Goals. Goals for the year. Again, as I move up the chart to the last piece that's usually not a visual, goals. First thing you're going to notice is that there's not a lot of numbers on these. That's one of the issues about being public. There's a lot of people here that are, quite frankly, aren't Lawson employees. There's a lot of people flying around. Could be PeopleSoft, for all I know. So I apologize that I'm not able to use actual numbers as I share the goals with you. The people who are measured by the individual numbers certainly know. But to give you an idea, this is what we measure as a company, and we'll measure it on a quarterly basis. Sales momentum, we have growth goals in terms of contracting. Market momentum, the pipeline is as healthy as it's ever been. Pipeline is at record numbers. That's good news. The issue is converting that pipeline into actual customers and deals. But the pipeline is extremely healthy. We measure it. We have goals. We look at it every day, but we're certainly measuring it on a monthly basis. Also measuring awareness. Awareness usually has a direct impact on the pipeline. Measuring what is our awareness both in how we measure it in terms of pipeline and how the outside world measures us. Again, measurements on the momentum that we currently have in terms of awareness. Customer momentum. Not only the fact that we actually want to have great customer sat, but we have a huge opportunity to sell more to our customers. We just had to get focused on it. Focus on the differences associated with it. Also, we want to get 500 customers up to the latest release of our applications. The latest release. Again, measurements, goals, all numbers that are out there. Product momentum, being #1 in the SA area, PSA software. All the numbers associated with that. Employee efficiencies. All these goals, all these metrics, and a competence culture, things that we'll measure constantly to make sure that we're becoming more efficient, more effective as an organization, just like the measurements that we're talking about. Now, with that said, how did we do on the goals from last year? What did we accomplish as an organization from a financial perspective as well as a strategy perspective? And with that, I want to introduce somebody that so far on this journey of being a public company has been a huge asset to all of you. Somebody that's been a huge asset in particular to me. Join me in welcoming our Executive Vice President and CFO, Bob Barbieri.
I screwed up in the middle.
Man. Great job, man. Thank you. Thank you. Brad did a great job. You know, as a guy that got operated on in, less than 2 weeks ago. To come up here, it took a lot of guts. To finish up the 4 questions, we get into the ones where it starts to get personal. And as I drop down and say, how can I contribute, that doesn't mean I as in Jay. That means I as in all of us. And then certainly what's in it for me as we go through this journey and as this journey continues. How you can contribute, or how I can contribute, is really where I start to turn it around to all of you. And the answer is in our values. Answers are in our values. Now, certainly anybody in management or any other roles, your job is to make sure that the people that work for you have clarity and direction. So it's not to take the responsibility off of whoever you report to. But how can I contribute is a personal issue where I turn it around and ask you the question, how are you going to contribute? And the answer is here. You got to get your job done. You got to get your job done. You got to look at the life and say, how do I get better every day? How am I aiming higher? How are my standards going to improve? What I'm going to do is going to produce winning habits on an ongoing basis for Lawson, the organization. But it's not without all the other values. So, it's not just, just this concept of keep working harder and harder. It's with all the other values. As I move up and we get into the values associated with people, we had a really hard May. We had to let go 111 people. That's not easy to do. That was people that we cared about, wanted to be part of this organization. Only thing that made me comfortable with that is that every single one of those people were treated with dignity and respect. Not by me. Certainly it started with me, but by all of us. Tough situation. I always say you find out about an organization's values in rough times, not in good times. And what came out in a very rough period was the dignity and respect and the values of this organization. That's a tribute to all of you. The way they were treated was an issue associated with all of us. And quite frankly, I was proud of the way it was handled, not happy to have to do it. With that said, one of the other things I've gotten wind of, and by direct questions, why do this? Jay, you froze salaries. You froze any kind of a future bonus. Why are we having this? And the answer is, it's part of who we are, is to have fun. It's part of what we are all about. You're not going to make it. This is not the type of organization that all this is about is the competence part of working harder every single day. It's work harder, but you know what, at the same time? It's about opportunity and it's about fun. You create the fun. We create the environment to have it, but you're still a huge part of it. And if you're a manager with any part of this organization, you've got to make sure your people are taking the time to have fun. This should be great. My message to you is this is a very important event, not in the terms of exactly what we're doing, but in the significance of what it's sending to all of you. And that this is an organization that needs to continue to have fun, not just work to your bones, your fingers to the bone. It's not what it's all about. So that's why this is so important on an ongoing basis, and that's how you can contribute. From a perspective of what's in it for me, certainly there's the aspect of our values. As this organization continues to grow, there will be opportunities for all of us. It's a big part of it. I've stated it on more than one occasion that opportunity comes with growth. We are set up for growth. One of the reasons that we froze the salaries and froze the bonuses was because I didn't want to let another 50 people go. And the reason is we were into muscle. And the way I describe that is there's a certain part of the organization sometimes where you have people that, you know what, you can let them go and they don't impact the organization. That wasn't the case here. We're in the muscle. I didn't want to let 50 more people go of muscle, people that mattered to this organization, so that when the economy does turn around, we have the opportunity to grow. That's what the challenges were. So what's in it for you is the opportunity to have fun, the opportunity to grow, the values that we talked about. Some of the other things, compensation. Yes, we froze the salaries, did not reduce them. We still make money here. We're still competitively paid. Same with the benefits. And the success sharing part of the bonuses, the numbers that we put out this year are realistic. They're growth, but they're realistic. So we should all be participating in success sharing on an ongoing basis. And what about the stock purchase plan? No, I didn't purposefully get the price to where it is today so that you could take advantage of it, not only for this 6 months, but for the following 6 months. But Friday is when it will lock in, and it'll be at a very aggressive price. Stock options, as of July, you all will receive more stock options. So let me leave you with this. We're doing the right thing as an organization. You are certainly doing the right thing. The message should be clear on what it is that we're doing as we tried to answer the questions on the top part of the pyramid of how we're going to do it, and certainly, what's in it for you. Now let me ask you this. Let me remind you that it's about the journey. Just like my trip to California, the goal was to go to California. Remember, all the fun, all the heartache, all the stories, all my experiences were in the journey. Wasn't in the fact that I just made it to California. That's my message to you. This is all about the journey. With that said, we've invited somebody to sort of fit into this whole theme. In the early 60s, then President Kennedy put out a huge BHAG goal. That BHAG goal was in the early 60s was, we're going to send a man to the moon. And we're going to do it before anybody else. And it sort of doesn't have, I don't think, the impact today because we did it. But at the time, was almost, not almost, it was unheard of. That's how far of a stretch it was. And with that, and with the theme about the journey of what it took to go to handle a BHAG goal like that and actually succeed in it, we've invited somebody that was a big part of that whole process. And what I want to do is introduce to you one of the people who actually has spent some time on the moon. Join me in welcoming Buzz Aldrin. Thank you. I want to thank Dr. Oldham for coming here and not only reinforcing the whole theme, but it was just a very powerful and inspirational moment. Today you have your opportunity to get your picture with Buzz Aldrin over here at the plane with the red nose on it. Outside of that, the terminal over here to your left will have buses probably leaving say every half hour on the day. But with that said, this is your day. This is your day to do what you want to do, have some fun. There's going to be lunch served here. There's going to be music. There's going to be a lot of games. There's going to be a ton of things to do. And if you just stay there for a couple seconds, we're going to have a lot more planes visible than what's just standing here around us and behind us. So enjoy the day. Have some fun. Thank you very much, Lawson Software. Right there. Great job. This is funny.